The clinking of silverware echoed through the heavy air of the dining room, every small metallic strike magnified against the tension that none of us dared to name. My father, Richard Whitmore, sat at the head of the long oak table, his shoulders slightly hunched, his expression carved with the years of both triumph and burden. Across from him, my mother Evelyn kept her gaze lowered, her hands folded neatly on her lap, as though the simple act of silence might erase the storm brewing under our roof. I sat halfway down the table, opposite my brother Michael, who leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, smirk tugging at the corners of his lips. The golden chandelier above bathed us all in warm light, but instead of comfort, it felt suffocating, like a spotlight forcing truth into the open. Claire, my father's voice cut through the clatter of dishes and low murmurs. He didn't preface it with small talk or warm pleasantries. He went straight for the kill, as he always did in business. The company is in trouble. If we don't find a lifeline soon, we'll lose everything that 3 generations before us built. I froze, my fork lingering just inches above the plate. I had been expecting this. For weeks, I'd watched his growing weariness, the hollow look in his eyes, the meetings that ended in slammed doors and raised voices. But hearing it now, in front of the whole family, made it real in a way private whispers never could. "What are you saying?" I asked carefully, though in my chest, my heart already knew the answer. "I need your help," he said, locking his tired blue eyes with mine. "I need you to save the business." A hush fell over the table. Even the faint ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway seemed to pause. My brother Michael raised an eyebrow, clearly enjoying the show. "How much?" My voice was smaller than I wanted, betraying the knot of dread in my throat. 150,000, my father answered without hesitation, as though the number was not just a request but an expectation. I gripped the edge of the table to steady myself. $150,000 wasn't pocket change. It was the sum of years of careful saving, sacrifices Daniel and I had made together, foregoing vacations, skipping luxuries, building toward our own future. To hand it over now meant more than money. It meant postponing our dreams indefinitely. Yet I saw in his eyes that this was not truly a choice. My father had never asked Michael to bear the weight of responsibility. It had always been me, the dependable daughter, the one who could be trusted to fix what was broken. "I'll do it," I heard myself say before my courage could falter. Michael's smirk widened, as though he'd just won a private bet. Mother exhaled softly, relief washing over her features. Father nodded once, curt, businesslike. No one said thank you. That night, I sat at my desk, pen trembling in my hand as I wrote the check. Daniel, my husband, stood beside me, his hand resting gently on my shoulder. "Are you sure about this?" he asked quietly. His voice carried no judgment, only concern. I nodded. "They need me." He didn't argue, but I saw the way his jaw tightened, the way his eyes lingered on the check before I folded it into an envelope. The next morning, I handed it to my father. He accepted it with a brisk nod, sliding it into his leather briefcase as though it were just another document. No embrace, no gratitude, not even acknowledgement. Only a muttered, "We'll get through this." But the cruelest blow came the very next day. I stepped outside to the sound of laughter, the purr of an engine revving in the driveway. There was Michael, leaning against the hood of a sleek, brand-new sports car, keys dangling from his finger like a trophy. My cousins and uncles crowded around, clapping him on the back, showering him with admiration. "Always knew you'd make it, Michael," one of them cheered. Michael grinned, basking in the praise. "Well, you know me. Success just follows me around." I stood frozen on the porch, bile rising in my throat. No one asked where the money had come from. No one cared that I had emptied my future for this family. In their eyes, Michael was the savior, the shining sun. That evening, the house filled with music and chatter. A party, thrown in Michael's honor. My relatives raised glasses of whiskey and wine, toasting his supposed sacrifice, his brilliance. My mother beamed with pride. My father, for once, looked almost at ease. Not a single glance came my way. I sat in the corner, nursing a glass of water, my stomach twisting with betrayal. Every toast was a knife. Every laugh another wound. And then, Daniel arrived. He walked into the room with quiet confidence, a brown leather folder tucked firmly under his arm. His eyes scanned the crowd before finding mine, and in that moment, I felt a flicker of hope ignite. "Claire," he said gently, then turned to the room at large. "I think you've forgotten something." Conversations hushed. All eyes turned toward him. He set the folder on the table with deliberate weight, the sound loud in the silence. Slowly, he opened it, revealing a stack of documents. "The signed ownership transfer," he announced. His voice carried calm authority, yet beneath it was steel. "As of this week, Claire is the rightful owner of Whitmore and Company." The words struck like a thunderclap. Michael's smirk evaporated. My father's glass froze halfway to his lips. My mother's face went pale. Around the room, the laughter died, glasses lowered, eyes darted nervously. No one spoke. No one moved. No one touched their glasses after that. The silence in the room felt like a suffocating blanket, heavy and choking. For the first time in my life, I saw my father at a loss for words. His jaw tightened, the muscles in his face twitching as though he were trying to piece together a response that would not betray his shock. Michael broke the silence first, his voice rising in disbelief. "What the hell are you talking about?" He stepped forward, his face flushed, eyes darting between me and Daniel. "This is some kind of joke, right? Dad, tell him." But my father didn't speak. His eyes, usually sharp with authority, looked clouded, uncertain. Daniel remained calm, his voice even. "It's no joke. Claire is the legal owner now. I had the documents notarized, witnessed, and filed with the state. Richard, you signed them yourself last week. Perhaps you assumed Claire wouldn't notice. But I made sure she did." Gasps rippled through the room. My uncles exchanged uneasy glances, whispers buzzing like flies in the summer heat. I sat still, my heart pounding in my chest, my hands clenched tightly in my lap. For years, I had endured being invisible in my own family, my sacrifices overlooked, my worth diminished. But now, the truth stood exposed in black and white ink. Michael's face twisted with rage. "You set me up. You let me think." He turned sharply to my father. "You let me think this was mine." Finally, Richard spoke. His voice was low, gravelly, but carried the weight of authority. "Michael, sit down." But Michael didn't sit. He slammed his fist on the table, rattling the glasses, sending one crashing to the floor. Wine spilled like blood across the polished wood. No, I've been loyal. I've carried this family's name. You can't just hand it over to her. I couldn't stop the bitter laugh that escaped me. Loyal. My voice shook, not with fear, but with years of suppressed fury. You didn't give a damn about the company. I gave up everything. My savings, my future, to save what you treated like a toy. And what did you do? Bought a car, threw a party, took the credit, and you dare call yourself loyal? The room erupted. Relatives muttered, some in support of me, others too afraid to break ranks with my father. Evelyn, my mother, pressed a hand to her chest, her face pale with shock, yet she said nothing. Daniel stepped closer, his presence a shield. Enough. The documents are final. Claire is the owner. The company's survival depends on her leadership now. My father's eyes narrowed, the old fire returning to them. Claire may have the papers, but ownership is more than signatures. Leadership is not in ink. It is in blood. Michael has always been the heir. I stood, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor. The sound echoed like a battle drum. Then maybe it's time that changed. The chandelier above flickered, shadows dancing across the walls like ghosts of generations past. I felt every eye on me, weighing me, judging me. But for once, I didn't shrink beneath their gaze. From this day forward, I said, my voice steady, I won't be your silent daughter anymore. I am the heir you tried to erase. And I will not be erased. Michael lunged toward me, rage blazing in his eyes, but Daniel intercepted him, gripping his arm with iron strength. Don't, Daniel warned, his voice low but dangerous. Don't make this worse. For a moment, Michael struggled, but then he tore his arm free, chest heaving, nostrils flaring like a cornered animal. He pointed a trembling finger at me. You'll regret this, Claire. You'll regret the day you turned this family against itself. But as he stormed out of the room, the sound of the door slamming behind him, I realized something profound. This family had never been united. The illusion of unity had always been just that, an illusion. Now the cracks were visible, and there was no going back. The storm outside began to roar as if the heavens themselves wanted to echo the chaos inside our home. Rain lashed against the tall dining room windows, lightning flashing every few seconds, throwing jagged shadows across the faces of my family. After Michael's dramatic exit, silence lingered, punctuated only by the storm. My father sat unmoving, his fingers drumming against the armrest of his chair. He looked at me as though I were a stranger sitting at his table, not the daughter who had sacrificed her future for his empire. You think this is victory? Richard's voice was calm, but there was venom beneath it. You think a stack of papers makes you worthy of what I built? I held his gaze. For years, I had lowered my eyes, bowed my head, accepted the role of the dutiful daughter. But no more. I don't think I'm worthy, Father, I said quietly. I know I am. Because unlike Michael, I didn't buy my worth. I earned it. Gasps murmured across the table. One of my uncles cleared his throat. Richard, maybe this isn't such a bad thing. Claire has always been responsible. Perhaps. Enough. My father slammed his hand down, rattling the silverware. His eyes burned with the same fury I had seen in boardrooms when competitors challenged him. She has no idea what it means to lead. She has no idea what sacrifices I made, what battles I fought. I felt Daniel's steady hand brush mine under the table, grounding me. I drew a breath and answered, "And you have no idea what sacrifices I made for you. For this family. I gave you everything you asked for, and you never even said thank you." For a moment, the words hung heavy in the air. My mother shifted uncomfortably, her lips parting as if she might finally speak, but she closed them again. "Claire," Richard said, his tone dropping lower, more dangerous. "If you go down this path, you will not just be fighting Michael. You will be fighting me. And I do not lose." A flash of memory cut through me. Being 10 years old, practicing piano for hours while Michael played outside, only for father to praise him for his natural charm. Being 17, graduating with honors, while Michael barely scraped by, yet he received the car and the celebration. My entire life had been a war one never chose, yet always fought. And now, for the first time, I wasn't fighting for scraps of love or recognition. I was fighting for what was rightfully mine. "I'm not afraid of you anymore," I said softly, but the words carried louder than I expected. "You've spent your whole life making me invisible. Tonight, you'll see me." The storm cracked louder outside, shaking the windows. My father's face hardened into stone, but I noticed his hands tremble as he lifted his glass. He didn't drink. He set it down again. Then came Michael's voice from the doorway. "You want war, Claire." We all turned. He stood there soaked from the rain, hair plastered to his forehead, eyes blazing with madness. In his hand, he held a folded piece of paper. He stepped forward, slamming it on the table. "Here's the truth," he snarled. "Father promised me everything. Not you. Me. He signed a will years ago. This company, this house, every damn thing. It was mine." My chest tightened, but Daniel was faster. He reached for the document, scanning it with a lawyer's precision. Then he looked up, calm, almost pitying. "This will is void, outdated, superseded by the transfer you both signed just last week. Michael, even your father can't save you now." Michael's face went crimson, his fists clenched. "This isn't over," he shouted. "You stole this from me." I rose from my chair, stepping forward, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. "No, Michael, you stole from all of us. You took credit for sacrifices you never made. You lived on the back of others' labor. For once in your life, you're facing the truth. You're not the heir. You never were." Lightning flashed, illuminating his twisted expression. For a moment, I almost pitied him, the golden boy who had been handed everything, yet built nothing. But then I remembered the smirk on his face as he flaunted his new car while I faded into the background. The pity vanished. The dining room had become a courtroom, the jury my family, the verdict undeniable. Michael stormed out again, slamming the door so hard the chandelier rattled. My father remained seated, his face pale, his empire crumbling not from competitors outside, but from truths finally spoken within his own home. For the first time in years, I felt a strange calm. The storm outside raged, but inside me, there was clarity. This was only the beginning. The storm that had battered the house began to ease, but inside the Whitmore estate, the storm was only beginning. My father sat rigid in his chair, staring at the documents Daniel had laid before him. His empire, the legacy he had built with sweat and ruthless decisions, no longer belonged to him, or to the son he had always favored. It belonged to me. You've destroyed this family, Richard said at last, his voice hoarse, almost broken. His eyes met mine with a mixture of fury and something else, fear. No, I replied softly, but firmly. You destroyed this family when you made one child invisible, and the other untouchable. Michael's footsteps echoed faintly in the hall outside, pacing like a caged animal, his anger radiating through the walls. I knew he wasn't finished. He would fight until the last shred of dignity left him. But for once, I wasn't afraid. Daniel placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. Claire, you need to make your decision. Are you going to step into this role fully, or let them tear you apart piece by piece? I looked around the room. My mother's downcast eyes, my uncle's unease, my father's icy glare. I remembered years of silence, of watching Michael praised for doing nothing, of sacrificing without acknowledgement. I remembered the check I had written, the dreams I had buried, the nights I had cried in secret. I stood tall. From today, Whitmore and Company is under my leadership. Anyone who wants to walk away now. But if you stay, you answer to me. The words hung in the air like thunder. My father's lips parted, as though he would argue, but no sound came. My mother finally spoke, her voice trembling. Claire, you were always the stronger one. I should have said it years ago. Her eyes filled with tears, but I saw relief there too, relief that someone had broken the cycle of favoritism and silence. Then Michael burst back into the room, drenched, furious, his hands trembling as he pointed at me. You think you've won. You'll never run this company. You'll fail, just like he said you would. He gestured wildly at our father. You're weak, Claire. You always were. I stepped toward him, closing the gap. My voice was steady, sharp as glass. No, Michael, I was silent. There's a difference. And silence is not weakness, it's patience. Patience that's over. He faltered, his rage burning out into desperation. This isn't fair, he whispered, but even he didn't believe his own words. Daniel moved forward, placing himself between us. It's over, Michael. Walk away before you lose even more than your pride. For a long moment, Michael stood there, chest heaving, eyes wild. Then he turned and stormed out once more, this time, not in triumph, but in defeat. The room exhaled. I turned back to my father. You always told me leadership was in blood, not in ink. Well, it's in both. And it's in sacrifice, in responsibility, in truth. You never saw that in me. But the world will. For once, Richard said nothing. The man who had controlled every conversation, every destiny in this house, sat in silence. Perhaps he finally saw me. Perhaps it was already too late. I walked to the head of the table, the seat that had always belonged to him, and I sat down. The weight of it settled on my shoulders, but instead of crushing me, it steadied me. This company will rise again, I said. But it won't rise on lies. It will rise on truth, and on those willing to fight for it. The storm outside faded into quiet rain, the thunder rolling away into the distance. Inside, the old order of the Whitmore family had shattered. In its place, something new was being born. I wasn't the forgotten daughter anymore. I wasn't the silent one. I was the heir. And this was only the beginning. The end.